skeptical or specific to changes to Stacks node or the minor stuff. So I'm happy to take a stab at it. I think for today we can just use the board that we've been using.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like we can worry about 2.1, maybe not right away, but let's like see if we can get some. I anticipate we'll have like a bit of a flood of like small low-hanging fruit issues coming in just as people try it out and find corner cases, and then once we're satisfied, we kind of got a handle on those. Maybe we can start working on 2.1. But that said, I love how I can write mainnet check-in here instead of testnet check-in.
Yeah.
Any issues, any concerns, any problems?
I can share, at least from PBC perspective, some of the things that we've been seeing. So let's see. I think with the core blockchain itself, I think there are two classes of issues. One is just transactions in mempool. I think the mempool pusher that we have maybe is helping. I don't think we have run the mempool pusher against any of the nodes that PBC is running. So maybe that's something that we can try. I think last I looked, there were 200-ish transactions in the mempool. I know there is one report of a transaction that was pending for a very long time, but I haven't looked into the details yet. So I don't know if there's an actual issue there, but there is sort of a bucket of things around just transactions in mempool. The second class of issues are all sort of minor related. I think Friedger pasted sort of his short list of issues that he would like to see addressed. I think we can talk through them as we run through the board. It might be easier that way.
So I think that we can definitely do that.
Yeah. Oh, there we go, Friedger. Hey, Friedger. But outside of sort of those two classes of things, I think for the most part, the chain's looking good. PBC, on the PBC side, we had a bunch of issues with the API that had downstream effects on the Explorer and the wallet. We were just so hammered by traffic that actually, maybe this is something that just to make a note of. So the API proxies, all of the core node endpoints directly to the follower that it's running. And the traffic to those endpoints was so high, maybe this is something in the networking stack that even after adjusting for the maximum number of HTTP clients, after pulling in that fix, it was still taking several seconds for any of the V2 endpoints to return. And so then what we ended up doing was we spun up a pool of 6 follower nodes dedicated for the API proxy of the V2 endpoints. And so now they're being round robin across those 6 nodes. And even then, sometimes those endpoints take seconds to respond. So I think there's something in the HTTP server that we have in the Stacks node that maybe we need to investigate and can be improved there.
I mean, this is true regardless of the load. Like if the node is, if the relayer thread is busy doing stuff with the chain state DB, like it grabs the exclusive lock on the database and it prevents the P2P thread from reading.
But I think we talked about this before, right? We should be able to do like read-only operations without.
Yeah, we need wall mode,
blocking.
Or we need to figure out why this is like an age-old issue, I suspect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that this is like the basically multi-threading on the chain state issue is what we can call it.
Sure.
Concurrency, how does it work? All right, any other issues for mainnet?
That's it.
Do we have open for these?
Well, so we're like putting minor issues in like kind of a different bucket.
Well, I think as we'll run through the board, it'll be easier to look at the specific issues. Like I'm just acknowledging that there is a bucket of issues that have come up from the mining experience so far that we need to talk through.
We should probably have a mining tag then, like just so we can help.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Bucket those together.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Speaking of the board, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. Alrighty, I'm just gonna move this window around. All right, cool. Reviewer approved. We can just
That probably needs to be rerun. Just
those
like,
ending clones.
yeah.
Oh yeah. I can, we can maybe like move it to the bottom of the list. It's not super critical.
Very well. We'll do that. BNS contract references. Is this done?
It looks good to me, but it would be good for probably Ludo to take a look at that documentation. Alex had it. Yeah. The thing about this PR is that basically like it just updates our docs build process and shouldn't impact the node at all. Like we shouldn't need to do another release or anything like that.
Alrighty. So once Ludo approves, we can just merge it then. No further concerns.
That's good.
All right, cool. SIP 006. Sorry, is my window here blacking this out for people?
It is a little bit, but it's fine.
Sorry, I think it's smaller.
Yeah, so
That's much better.
I think this was included or I remember, Jude, you saying something about copying this over to some other repo, but I don't think this ever got merged into the Stacks blockchain repo.
Yeah, I copied it over to the StacksGov SIPs repo where the SIPs will ultimately live.
Got it.
I mean, I'm happy to just approve it right now and merge it in, and then we can just deal with the greater issue of moving the SIPs over to StacksGov from there.
Cool.
Cool, I'll do that after the meeting. Usage of peer version. I think we both approved this. I think this is ready to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did not merge because I don't know if we are like revisiting our Git process. Like, are we just merging this non-consensus breaking stuff directly to master, or are we like doing some kind of Git flow? Yeah, what's next on that?
Maybe let's add a discussion item to talk through that.
Yeah, sounds good.
Actually, talking of updates, Jude, this is also something that maybe you weren't as involved in over the weekend. So testnet has been down since the 14th, I think.
I know.
I think there was a hackathon that was happening with some students where they were trying to use the testnet. So on Saturday, we spent some hours trying to get the testnet back up. And the Xenon miner was getting stuck at some block number on the testnet Bitcoin chain, even though Follower and other nodes were able to catch up. And then when Ludo and I spun up miners locally, they were also able to catch up and attempt to mine a Genesis block. So there was something funky going on. We suspected it was related to the peer ID issue again. And so the hope is that this PR would fix those issues. So we'll have to tag a new build that we can deploy on just the Xenon testnet for now. And I think figuring out sort of how we want to version these things is maybe part of that discussion as well.
Did you try restarting it multiple times, or is this just one restart attempt?
No, I think we at least tried twice.
Did you set the follower as the seed node?
Yeah. Yes. So the Xenon miner has the Xenon follower set at its bootstrap.
Okay. I'd be curious to see the logs because like I opened an issue last night where I noticed that my node could, in the process of bootstrapping, I think there's a bug somewhere in the downloader that will cause it to stall for like a long period of time, like on the order of half an hour before it keeps making progress. I'm not sure why, but I intend to figure that out today. That might be related to that.
Okay.
Especially pernicious if you have multiple reward cycles to deal with, because the sync watchdog will just proceed to the next reward cycle and assume there's no anchor block if this bug is triggered. And that might be what's happening here.
All right. So yeah, we can all that to say we should merge this PR and then figure out how to get it on the testnet.
Sounds good. Check transfer semantics for the mempool. This looks good to me. Do you want any other reviewers, Aaron?
I think that I need to have another reviewer at this point, or merging is blocked.
Let's do that.
So, yeah.
Alrighty. Review in progress. Updates to SIP 001. I think this just came in. I don't think we document the modulus and the commit windows anywhere in the SIP process. We should do that.
Yeah, I don't think Gavin is on this call. I don't know if the PR is actually, it's updating the thing that is trying to update correctly.
No, I don't think so either, but it's still, I think it's
But
still.
yes, we should document it in the SIPs. I think that point is taken, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we can, if we think that this PR is not the appropriate PR, we can close it out, but then open an issue to track the update.
Yeah, sounds good. Mempool pusher. This is just a pretty hacky script that iterates through the mempool and a local peer's neighbors and just blasts out new transactions to its neighbors. Ever since I deployed it, I haven't noticed any transaction being missed by more than one block on the Explorer. So I'm hoping it's working. But yeah, like what we really need here is an actual anti-entropy protocol in the node for the transaction mempool. We can merge it. I don't care. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think we should merge it, just so
Yeah.
it is available for other people as well.
Everybody. I think that the SIPs do need to go live in the Stacks.gov repo. I made a copy of all the SIPs and put them over there before the mainnet launch. What do we want to do about the SIPs here in the blockchain repo though?
Yeah, as I was saying, I think there are a lot of pointers, for better or for worse, for SIPs in the blockchain repo. So instead of completely deleting the SIPs, I would prefer to just update them with the link to the updated location in the Stacks.gov repo, at least for a while. Maybe once we've had like a few weeks of that or a few months of that, then we can remove them entirely.
Sure, I'm happy to do that as part of that PR.
Does that work for everyone else?
We're just gonna make another note of that right now.
And this is maybe immaterial at this point, but I know that the last time we had talked about this, we were, at least there was some desire to also preserve the history, which there is a way of doing that, but it's not the most elegant. Did you do that, or did you just copy over the contents in?
I just copied over the contents, but I know the technique you're talking about. I can apply that if you want.
I mean, I don't particularly care. It's really up to everyone else.
Do not
Okay,
care.
what does the audience think?
Our SIPs can live in the eternal sunshine of your spotless mind. It's fine.
Well, the history is technically preserved in the blockchain repo, so if anyone really wants to do archaeological digging, they can. Do not mine a burn block if it failed already. Aaron, what is this? Do you want to talk about it a bit?
Yeah, I mean, this is a PR that probably we should be abandoned, but it tries to address some of the weird behavior that we're seeing in Neon nodes, where when a UTXO is pending and the Neon node attempts to mine a block, it fails to mine the block, and then every time that thread wakes up, it tries to mine a block again, even if the burn block hasn't changed. So there's like no hope that the UTXO is confirmed. This was like that sort of crisis we had seen in Xenon, maybe like 24 hours before mainnet launch, when it was trying to mine a block that took it a minute to assemble. And then as soon as it finished, it tried again.
Yep.
So far, we haven't really seen this behavior in mainnet.
I saw it in my miner, not the minute part, but the missing UTXO part.
Right. So like we have a longer wake up time, which I think helps out with this. Yeah.
So what do you want to do with this then? Do you just want to close it or flesh it out?
Yeah, I can just close it. Because I don't know. I think that there are sort of like so many things that we probably want to address in the Neon node that like this will, like fixing that issue will fall out as a consequence of like any one of 5 fixes. So
Alrighty.
yeah, I think the issue for this is 2346.
Ah, yes. Okay. So should I just go ahead and close it then?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Alrighty. I still haven't looked at this Pascal. I'm sorry. It's, you know, with the mainnet launch, it's been really hectic.
It's been broken since the last rebase that I did.
Okay.
And I haven't spent too much time yet on it since that rebase, but I'm going to fix it this week. Any feedback, sure, is welcome. And I've got a lot of different ideas after running a miner for a bit on how I want to maybe continue on this one.
Sounds good. Same with 1745 and 1760.
Yes, this seems less important, or it's still happening to some miners. But I think it might be a different thing than what this was about.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as Aaron's pointing out, there's like a ton of things that really need to be fixed in the Neon node with relationships to mining.
Yeah, so maybe we can get rid of that one. I'll close it.
Okay. Consistently getting conflicting nonce and mempool via faucet. Is this a PR? I don't think this is a PR. Can we close this? DeWalker, do you know?
I thought that we had already closed it out, but yeah, if not, I agree. We should probably close it.
Okay. So I'll just have them reopen if it shows up again. Cool, in progress. Per reward cycle inventory refresh intervals. I have this working in a branch somewhere. When I send the PR with it, I'll just go ahead and let you all know. I think it might have actually been part of the, no, it was actually part of the peer-to-peer fixes that I sent earlier. Let me just double check, it'll be referenced. Yeah, this was fixed in the pruning code. So I'll go ahead and close. Same with this. All right. I'm still working on 1805. I'll be working on this in the absence of any bigger fires to put out throughout this week. So still making progress on it. It's not really going to become a huge problem though until we are missing an anchor block, at which point we should really get that merged ASAP. Using test ground for large scale testing. Jay Wiley, how are we doing on this?
Really well, actually. Everything is more or less set at this point.
Cool.
You know, it works in Kubernetes now, and everything looks great. I capped it at, I think, 30 nodes. It takes a little longer to run, but other than that, it's fine.
That's awesome. So like the test pass, you get the chain quality and everything?
Yes. Yep. Everything looked good. The same as running it locally. You know, the one caveat, like I said, is it takes roughly 30 to 40% longer than it would on a local VM, just based on resource consumption.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's very configurable. Everything looks good though.
Glad to hear it. I'm just going to add one little comment here because I thought of something that we should probably be testing that I can just take on as part of the net test code, and that is.
I was actually going to say that this issue was tracking having a set ground setup in place. I think there are many things that we can do with this setup now that we have test ground in place, and we should just open new separate issues.
Oh, so we should just declare victory on this and close it then?
We should say that we have a test ground setup that exists now, and open new specific issues. Say, here is a test that we want to run on test ground, and capture that separately.
Oh, I was talking about expanding the testing parameters. One thing that I don't think we do a good job capturing, but probably should, is what happens when Bitcoin blocks arrive at a truly variable rate. Because right now they arrive very consistently, like once every 2 minutes or whatever.
Oh yeah, interesting.
And I think that's a source of some problems in the miner. Because you'll see Bitcoin blocks either take 30 minutes to arrive, or you get like 5 of them in 10 minutes or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. There's like out of 724 blocks, that 131 are what I call empty from a stack perspective, like no stack commits from any miners. So that,
Yeah, I think we set it up with the test to create a new block every 2 minutes.
Right,
you,
but it's
you
the
need
Bitcoin
a more
controller.
random thing just to make.
Yeah.
We should probably vary it between like 30 seconds and 5 minutes, according to a Poisson distribution.
Because there's 18% empty blocks, and there's one bug that causes the smoothing to just go crazy when that happens.
Yeah, so that should be something to cover.
Could we actually, instead of creating new issues in this repo, maybe create it in the test ground repo? Would that be better?
Where is that?
I can pull it up and put it in the chat here.
All right.
Is that a public repo now?
Yes, it is. I'll put it in chat in just a moment here.
All right,
One sec.
cool.
All right, let's keep working through the board, Jude, while JYL is pulling that up.
Sounds good. Close that window. All right. Gavin's not on the call, so I just skip that one. Benchmarking harness for measuring cost analysis constants. Did we ever finish this? Aaron, I think you had something here, right?
I think we have the start of something like a benchmark harness for this.
Yeah, we have like a max block test. Is that it?
No, not exactly. So we have benchmarks in this repository for like measuring the performance of the things that govern our block limits, but not for really measuring relative constants between functions.
So how do you want to move forward on this issue then? Do you want to break it down into smaller issues, or?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea, but I think also this is just 100% Stacks 2.1.
Okay.
Like, we're not, I mean, we could possibly try to coordinate a cost voting update, but given that cost voting requires like 40% of the liquid supply of stacks, I don't think that we're going to be able to coordinate that anytime soon.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Well, nevertheless, Stacks 2.1. Max block test. Reed, do you want to comment on this? Is Reed here? Thought I saw him. All right, I guess we're gonna move on. I don't see him on the chat list here. 1641, this is still a draft. I think we were waiting on getting the locking situation fixed up in the Clarity DB, but I think that should be good now. Should we move forward on this?
I haven't rebased it. I can do that this week.
Okay. No rush. Yeah, I think we might be closer to being able to handle writes to the system, because we recently fixed the Clarity DB locking issue that was occasionally causing runtime panics.
We can skip this next one. It's not, it's an issue in the API repo. Not sure why it showed up here.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, it's not even a bug there, but yeah, we can ignore it for this discussion.
All right, we'll skip. New issues. I noticed this issue last night. When bootstrapping a node, it can occasionally get stuck re-downloading blocks it already has. It will eventually succeed, but it just takes a while. And that's obviously a pathological corner case that should be fixed. And I intend to get that fixed today. Burn values for sortition unexpected after non-mined burn blocks gaps. Is Friedger still here?
I'm here, yeah.
Cool, do you want to talk a bit about this?
Yeah, so we analyzed a bit the data that we had this morning with the other miners, and we saw, it looks like the burn values are reset after a gap.
What do you mean by a gap?
So where there are no commits on the burn chain block. So we have 4.4 or 666, 646, sorry. And then a gap to 649.
Mm-hmm.
And you see there, it's the same value, burn value for this user, even though he has burned twice the amount. So this is a different example. It's 652, the block 666, 652. And there you also have, yeah. And here the burns are all set to just one value for all others but the winner.
Yes. So this is a consequence of their median, the median for all of these miners dropping to 1 or essentially 0.
No,
right?
It's in the list, in the all burns.
Yes.
Yeah, but the median should ignore the empty blocks. It should not penalize all the
So
miners.
I have in the expected value, I would like to see, yeah, their expected value. You have in 666,649. The third value should be 205,000, not a 1.
Well,
It should not, because essentially you're penalizing the big miners over the small miners. Because then it becomes equal weight if everybody has a median of 1. Except in that case, it's even worse because suddenly one miner has not reset. Any kind of
yes, but that miner didn't reset because he mined in a block that nobody else mined in, right?
No,
No.
there were no commits in that block.
Then there were no commits in that empty block. So you had everybody
I see.
mining, nobody and everybody, and suddenly everybody is reset except one. Any kind of changes is going to create need a hard fork for this, though, unfortunately. But
Definitely.
but that's not working as intended.
Well, I mean, the intention is that when there's a block that no one has mined in, everybody gets scored 1 for that block. Like that block's not ignored in the window.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be the case like this, because look at what it's doing to the history. The history is gone as well.
Hmm.
I never liked that smoothing. and this is even like worse because this is really not even working as intended. And
So the last comment was that you also see that if you mine on a fork, then the all burns value are only considered for the canonical fork. So that's fine. But the problem is if there's a gap.
and a lot of blocks of miner, that's not something I open yet. Sometimes half the blocks, the commits are rejected after an empty block
Yeah.
for some other reason, but
Right.
because of the modulus.
Yes, it's because they submitted their block commits assuming they were going to try to get into that block that turned out to be empty, and then they end up getting included in the next block. So all those block commits end up invalid. As we can, I can try to dive into like what's going on in the actual assignment of these all burns for these blocks and see if there's something breaking. But really, yeah, I think that the problem is that when you have a block where nobody mines, like everyone should get a 1 for that block. And that is very punishing, especially when you have a gap of like 2 blocks. So like if you skip 2 blocks, right?
I don't think these blocks should be counted. Especially like we have about 20% of these blocks, 18% of these blocks. It's happening 18% of the time where we have empty blocks.
Right, but I think that there's 2 complaints here. So one is, do we want the smoothing window to exist at all? Right? Or like, is the intention of the smoothing window bad? Right?
I think it is.
The other is
that's...
is our intention implemented correctly? Yes, I agree that you think it is.
Yeah,
but,
no. but I don't think it's implemented as it should be either. But that's a different.
Right. So I think we should try to separate those 2 things. Figure out if it's not implemented correctly, like if we're really seeing like totally unexpected results given what the intention was. That's one problem. And then secondly, if the smoothing window is a problem even in intention, then that's something else to also potentially address, right?
Yeah, so in the interest of time, we do have a bunch of other issues to talk through. So I would recommend if there is a sort of change that we would like to see that is, will be consensus breaking, like we should just, like Pascal, for example, if you think that, the smoothing window shouldn't exist, you should write up a SIP and we should use that to drive that process. And this current issue, we should sort of keep it focused on whether the current implementation is correctly implementing what has been previously laid out in the SIPs, and if the system is working as expected. And if it is not, then we can figure out what to do with it. Either way, any change here will be consensus breaking, and so I don't think we should try to resolve it in this meeting. So maybe Aaron, you can spend some time just looking at the data and either confirm that the behavior is in fact what should be happening, and here's an explanation, or that there is a bug in the implementation.
I would be interested to, I don't know, do some peer programming on that, so that I learn a bit about the project structure and so on.
Yeah, sure.
If that's not too much to ask.
Yeah, definitely not. I can even I can give you some pointers into what's going on there. So
yeah, so I looked already at the code, but yeah, we can do it offline.
Cool.
Cool.
All right, Aaron, you're gonna live stream your debugging session.
Yes, please.
Aaron on Twitch.
Yeah.
Which watch an engineer.
Yes.
And Aaron, also, if you can add to the issue what the smoothing intent was, whether there was like for stackers or because my recollection was to help smooth the stacker contributions, but maybe that wasn't.
It's to smooth stacker contributions and also pose like a little bit of a barrier to miners who want to periodically enter and leave the mining pool. So
yeah, because the thing is that, and we can continue after that the discussion in the issue, but there's no smoothing happening because we have blocks with 20,000 satoshis and we've some with 2 millions. So the only way to achieve smoothing for stackers is by pooling in large pools. So you then equally divide rewards. Any kind of smoothing that we do on short term, it's not going to help for that. And it's not helping.
Yeah, if I recall the discussion correctly, the main purpose of smoothing was to make it so that if you're a miner and you're stacking your coin bases and your stacks rewards, you would be unable to simply wait until your reward addresses came up in the reward set and then just blast all the Bitcoin out you possibly had, knowing you'll get it all back, but then winning the block race. By having this window, it raises the barrier to doing that.
But you don't know when your turn's coming, right? Because
you will know if you're the next one, though.
yeah, but then only one miner. You're going to win that block, and then so what?
It's not fair. Like, mining has to be a resource expenditure. Otherwise, the miners who have stacks will be able to mine at a very steep discount compared to the miners that don't. And that creates centralization in the system.
Especially with the fees, I don't think that's even an issue. Because yes, the miner is going to reward itself, but not the other miners. So you're just going to just split back in the same bucket. But the other miners are not going to give you more. So you're going to win that block, and then that's it. Because your turn only comes once in the reward window.
Yeah,
I think you're coming from the wrong. You're coming from the wrong perspective. But anyway, yeah, there are other issues that we can discuss.
All right, let's take this offline then.
Yeah.
Next issue, Aaron, I think you sent a PR for this already. I think we're good to go on it.
Yep.
Cool. So a while back we had this is a question from someone I've actually never seen before. I guess it's something to do with the DID method that we have. We have a DID spec open on the W3C working group. Last I checked, they're all still in draft mode. If not, then I guess we can just move it to finalized. But this kind of asks a deeper question here, and that is, now that Stacks 2.0 is out, which layer of the stack is responsible for implementing DID resolution? Should it be the Stacks node or should it be the Stacks API? I personally think it has to be the API at this point.
Yeah, probably. Also, I think selfishly speaking, maybe we can push this issue down for like discussion later. I think there are other minor related issues that should take precedence in terms of, our ability to get through them in this meeting.
Very true. Insufficient fee rejecting replacement. Frieger, do you want to talk about this one?
I just saw it in the logs and discussing with Pascal, he said I should file an issue.
Yep.
I don't understand what it means, but it cost me my block reward.
Okay.
It's costing a lot of many rewards. The problem for this is that the size of the transaction is not constant, and the code is using the size of the previous transaction instead of trying to backpatch the current one it's working on. And I've actually seen, if you scroll down, there's like a lot of variations, like from 338 to 352 bytes.
Yep.
And I just recompiled my miner and I put 353 as a constant, and it's working very well.
Excellent. I think we talked about this earlier. Ludo, I think you were the last one to touch this code. Do you want to go ahead and take this on?
Sure. Yeah. So what's the? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think the fix is really straightforward. You just make sure that when you do replace by fee, you just take the length of the serialized transaction.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the case, but yeah.
Yeah,
Well, but
I think that the problem is that when we initially broadcast, when we first broadcast a transaction, we're not actually using its length.
Yeah.
We're using the config setting. And then when we replace by fee, it's using the length. So when you replace by fee, what you actually want to do is just like look at the fee you last paid and increase it.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't be trying to do any recalculation. Like you should just be fetching whatever your pending fee is and bumping it.
Cool. Okay.
Well, it has a variable called /txlen, and that ends up being off in not every time, but in some cases. But and here I think it's just trying to split pennies. I was going to try to just add a buffer, like add 10 or 15 sats. I don't know that that's the right thing, because it's in some blocks it's happening like half the miners.
Yeah, I believe it. I think it's because we're calculating what the expected fee should be two different ways.
Yeah.
So the Bitcoin mempool will reject our attempt to replace by fee. Because
I think
like
it's your own node that rejects you, but the mempool
yeah,
or the miner would just reject you anyway
right.
downstream. So that's better to do it right away. But
Yep.
and then with the smoothing, not that I want to beat a dead horse, then that penalizes everybody that gets rejected. And
yeah. I think that like so much of the pain right now of the smoothing has to do with the fact that like our current miner implementation can't consistently get people mining blocks. So it's impossible to like keep your median high.
And I suspect it's also creating orphan blocks, because the first block that people mine is often an older one, and then when they learn the new one, they try to replace it and they can't. And then you end up with orphaned. So although we haven't had too many orphans so far, I mean, enough to be painful probably for miners, but just a few percent.
Yeah. Aaron, do you want to talk about this briefly here?
Sure. So I think this is probably a problem that anyone that is mining is kind of aware of, which is that if while you're mining, you submit a Bitcoin commit and that commit remains pending past the block you were expecting it to get included in, not only does your miner sort of enter this degenerate state, but you also, that block commit becomes invalid. And so you lose any possibility of winning that block. And also you get charged in the mining window. And so we probably need a way both for the miner node to like recover from this degenerate state, but also it would be really nice if we could use replace by fee to ensure that that transaction actually became valid whenever it got committed.
Yeah, so it sounds like we have a handful of related mining bugs then, that if we fix them all, then things should work swimmingly.
Yeah.
Pascal, you might have seen this already. I'm just curious if there's a separate issue or if you think it's the same issue. Some people reported their similar sort of transaction failure message, but the error code is different. It's bad transactions, inputs
The
missing
split,
or spent.
there's something where it's the split, not split, but yeah, it's using some, or trying to respend the same UTXO, I think. Yeah, I don't know how to reproduce it. I've seen it. There's no issue for that one?
It is.
But yeah, that's a different issue. I don't know what the cause is.
Can you scroll down?
What is the issue number, Friedger?
Can you scroll down in the board?
Sure.
I think it is something with minor commit twice or something like that.
But it has happened at least once to me, at least when I looked at it. But the miner ended up resubmitting another transaction just in the same block, and it went fine.
It's this one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah, that's one. Okay. Do we think this is just a side effect of one of the other issues that we discovered, like 2, 3, 4, 6?
I don't know. It looks different enough, but I don't know what actually is the cause or what the transaction looked like to get that error. I haven't even looked it up. I Googled.
I tried Googling that error code and came up with nothing useful.
You got to read
but the next thing is maybe to just go in Bitcoin-D's source code, but it's a little dense at times.
But isn't this error occurs if you try to double spend, right?
Yep. That's what this looks like. Maybe.
I
But
thought,
there's
I thought
nothing intentional there. That there's something.
No, yeah, there's nothing intentional. I agree. There's nothing intentional from this user, but the way that the Neon node and like that Bitcoin reg test controller interact with their UTXOs, there's ways that this could happen. Like if you tried to replace by fiat transaction and that transaction already got confirmed.
Yeah,
that you get a different error, because then at least in the explorers, that shows as invalid, and that one will stay in the mempool for forever. If you try to replace into the previous something into it happened to someone else.
I see.
But it shows as invalid. So it like hours later it was still there. So it's not going to. So that's a different case than the not getting into the block that you with the initial transaction you were trying to replace.
and it was reported on Xenon as well.
Interesting.
So yeah, I really have no idea what causes that specifically, but it didn't seem to be a big issue, at least in my case, because it sent another transaction a few seconds or moments later, and then that transaction got accepted.
Yeah.
You see two transactions for this user, so they spend twice the commits. So these are commits for the same block by the same user.
I see. Yeah, that would match with the problem that so if you had a situation where you do one commit, that commit gets confirmed into a Bitcoin block, and then before the Bitcoin processor and relayer thread and all of that stuff figures out that the burn chain tip advanced, the relayer wakes up and tries to remine and issue an updated block commit. It'll try to do a replace by fee on that exact same transaction, even though it doesn't know that that transaction got confirmed.
Yeah, it sounds like a race condition that could be fixed.
And it would be super rare. Like that basically means that there's a race condition between your block, your miner finding out that a new burn chain block has occurred and it trying to wake up and do a replace by fee. So I would believe that this would be a pretty rare phenomenon.
Well, we saw it, I don't know, 5 times or something.
A couple
like
times,
that.
yeah.
It's definitely not as
1%.
common as some of the other one, but
yeah, it's not as common as the other errors. I think is what I mean. Not that it doesn't happen.
So a super rare NFT is something else.
Yeah.
Could it be related to that there was only one input on the address?
Maybe. I'm inclined to think that this is just caused by a race condition, and that this guy got unlucky with the race condition.
Is this a race condition we can avoid? I'm not entirely sure it is.
I think it's hard to avoid.
So how do you want to resolve this? Should we just close it, leave it open?
No, I think we probably need to do something more intelligent than the code is currently doing in this case. Right now, we basically just treat all failures to issue a block commit as the same. And I don't know, the Neon node probably needs to do something more intelligent, or we need new miner node.
we probably would need to understand why the Bitcoin daemon is not happy with that particular transaction and because once we know how it's laid out, maybe we can understand how we build it.
Just try to put that in here so we know. Yeah, we can look more at this. Sounds like a race condition that's potentially something we can do something about. I think we're at the end of the list of new issues here. Do you want to just quickly talk about discussion points while we still have a few minutes. Ludo, the F times W, do we have a way of knowing this via V2POX?
What is F times W?
So it's basically a threshold that we would have to reach for enabling the next POX cycle during the next prepare phase. And yeah, the question here is, like, can we simulate that computation right now with the last 200 blocks and see if POX would have been enabled with occurrence?
Yeah.
Does that make sense, Aaron?
Yes. I think that basically all you need to do to figure that out is look at our stacks block height as a fraction of the burn block height.
Mm-hmm.
And that would tell you basically F times W.
Okay.
The other thing related to the next POX cycle being enabled is the total amount of stacks stacked. Like we have to clear some threshold, which is 5% of the liquid supply of stacks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's something you can just query right now by the read-only API.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, both of these we can calculate and track.
I can see this finding its way into a dashboard or something, saying how close are we to activating POX in the next reward cycle? Is that what you had in mind, Ludo?
What I had in mind is, so I don't know how we fixed the threshold for F time W, but if it's a Goldilocks thing, should we adjust it?
I don't think that's an option.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's an option today.
Okay.
We can revisit this, I think, in 2.1. But I think if we're not getting to 80%.
Yeah, we have worse problems if we're not getting to 80%.
Yeah, the goal should be getting to 80%.
Yeah.
Reed, do you want to just quickly talk about this discussion point, how to proceed with cost constant estimation?
Yeah, sure. So sorry if I missed any discussion about this. My Wi-Fi dropped out for a bit earlier, but so this was something I was working on pre-mainnet launch that Aaron, after talking with Aaron, we decided to kind of shelve this for the time being and just go with more conservative constants. And the reason for that was because we were having trouble kind of isolating the runtimes of certain functions. So, certain functions in Clarity, I guess the cost of running them is not super easy to isolate through kind of the current way that we were benchmarking. And I guess I just wanted to put this out there to Aaron and the group to see if anyone had any thoughts on this, or if Aaron had kind of thought more about how to get around that.
I don't have a ton more thoughts about how to get around this isolation. I mean, I think when measuring things like this, ultimately, you can try to figure out how to isolate different components by figuring out actually what cost components are going into it. If there's something that's whatever messing with the calculations, I don't know, it just requires diving into what's going on there. As far as how to proceed with cost constant estimation, I think that what we should plan to do is to say we should have better cost constants for Stacks 2.1. And so we should try to be prepared for setting those. Yeah.
Is your main concern CPU tasks, the cost of evaluating and applying, or is it more holistic, the cost of loading the contract, evaluating it, executing it?
Yes. So the answer is kind of both of those, but right now it's more CPU. So the thing that we do have a pretty good estimate of right now is like the MARF count and cost of MARF operations. So like total MARF reads and total MARF writes, those are very easy to measure, and we do an accurate job measuring them. It's the CPU stuff that where we're just incredibly pessimistic right now, and like we charge, I don't know, like addition the same amount that we charge hash functions.
Wow. Okay. Probably for the best though, like for the reasons you point out.
Yeah.
There's another half of this too, and that is like we have a ton of space for non-consensus breaking optimizations in the VM. So if we notice, for example, that something is being undercounted, at least, we can potentially make the VM go faster to compensate.
And it's not directly related, and I don't have a smoking gun quite yet, but I've noticed that most of the attempt at forks come when there's more than a few transactions in the mempool. And the miners take a long time. Either the miner or the verify of the block takes a long time, so you end up for several blocks redoing and rebuilding new blocks off the older ones, instead of creating just a clean parent-child chain. And it's not always the case, because sometimes it might be the type of transaction maybe, but I've definitely noticed that most of the orphans end up, when there are a lot of transactions, being added and then verified in a block. So there's definitely some research and some improvements that we can do there.
I noticed locally last night in this vein, we are still being pretty aggressive in refreshing the unconfirmed state tree. If there's a lot of pending microblocks, this can slow down all other mining nodes in their attempts to build blocks. Maybe that's related, but we can look into it for sure. I think this question was already answered. Commit flow smoothing working correctly, and that's just we're going to work more on that offline. Real quick here for GitHub, if we're going to merge non-consensus breaking changes, do we want to just merge them into Next and just use Next as like the next stable release? And we have its dedicated 2.1 branch for consensus breaking changes?
Maybe. That's like fine with me. I would say maybe we should use a more standard name than Next in that case. Like I think the reason we picked Next as a name was because it conveyed that it was consensus breaking.
I see.
In some way, like it was like the next testnet reset.
Yeah.
So like
let's see. One option here would be to essentially have a stable branch for what is currently Stacks 2.0, which is guaranteed to be sort of compatible and does not have any consensus breaking changes. And we essentially cherry pick the things that we want into that branch and build new releases from that branch. We can use master for everything else and maybe rename Next to develop or something like that, and continue using. I think the intended purpose is useful, and if Next is a descriptive enough name, we can keep with that. But I like the idea of knowing that consensus breaking stuff will specifically go into that branch first before it lands into master. I guess like the only question is there a need for a branch that is more stable than master?
Well, I think that master is the branch you build off of. Like that's like we only merge to master basically when we do releases, is my current understanding, because all of our instructions and our flows are built around like, hey, if you want to make the latest and greatest stacks binary that's guaranteed to work, you build from master. We don't give you a checkout step first.
If I could chime in here really quick, I think that tagging is the intended mechanism for conveying what's a stable build. Personally, I don't think that we should have like a separate branch that's considered more stable than master. I think master is kind of like the final destination. We have merged changes into master before that didn't immediately trigger a new tag. But that's okay. People that visit the repository should just look at the latest tag, the latest release, and just go from there. That's what I'm most used to.
I do like the idea of having a separate branch for non-consensus breaking changes that will make their way into master, like updates to the peer network, updates to the miner, that sort of thing. How do we all feel about having something like a develop branch for that?
Yay.
Yeah, I am a fan, generally speaking, of Git flow sort of workflows where you have like any feature first merges to develop, fixes first merge to master, any merge to master gets remerged to develop.
Yeah, and to next in our case.
And to next in our case. I would be a fan of that. I think that it just, yeah, it'll require some like, I guess, updates to like how we evaluate things, but not that much more.
Well, we can have separate branch guards on next, for example, like don't ever merge next to master unless it's gotten way more sign-offs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Develop can be a little bit less rigorous because it's non-consensus.
Yes.
One other question about this. Sorry, we're like maybe 5 minutes over time. I can maybe just leave this as a thought to think about. We don't have to get an answer. Do we want to set up a set of nodes running different releases of master to make sure that they all stay in sync as time progresses? Like as a way to catch consensus breaking changes before they really become a problem.
So by different releases of master, what were you thinking, Jude?
Suppose we make like, you know, a 0.1, a 0.2, a 0.3. These are all supposedly stable, supposedly non-consensus breaking branches and releases, but then suppose that we accidentally break consensus in one of them.
I see. I mean, I would say we should probably bake that into part of our release process where we don't actually publish release until we have spun up a node and validated that it's able to catch up with mainnet correctly.
I think that's definitely something we could put into our CI system, for example.
Yeah, or until then, you know, make it a manual process as part of.
And that could even be something that we're required to do just as part of our merge.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anyway, something to think about. Maybe we can talk more about it when the time comes to actually do this. But we're 7 minutes over, so I don't want to keep y'all. Time's valuable.
Okay, so just before we part ways here, Aaron is going to look into the smoothing function issue. This is issue 2358. Is someone looking into 2347? And I guess like I want to make sure every issue, like I moved the things that we talked through in the backlog column. I want to make sure everything there has a clear assignee. So everyone knows sort of who's looking at what.
Yeah, let's do that real quick. Miner commitment is spent when failed to submit Bitcoin transaction. I'm sorry, that's maybe not the most pressing issue. The most pressing issue is the smoothing, I would think, right?
So there's
yes.
I mean, I plan on taking a look at it immediately following this call. I don't know how much more pressing we can make it.
Yeah, so we can assign that one to Aaron. I guess we need assignees for let's see, 2347 and 2346.
One is the request by fee.
Yeah, I will take on 2347.
Okay.
I don't see this in the issue. Where is 2347? Is pull request?
No, it should be in the backlog column.
Yeah, it's an issue.
Oh, I'm sorry. Stupid me. I'm looking straight at the GitHub issues and I didn't clear my search field.
I think 2346 probably is a large enough like sort of architectural change to the way that the miner functions that we should probably like sort of try to clear out the current fires before starting work on that.
Okay.
Alrighty. So we'll leave it unassigned for now.
Yeah. And then I think like not to harp too much on process on this, like for the develop next master sort of Git flow situation, like I think we probably need to come up with what a release process looks like for the Stacks node. Like, are we gonna have regular release schedules? Do we require change logs? All those kinds of things. And this sort of like plays into that. But I think we probably don't want to waste time doing that until
Well,
like,
if we do Git flow and if we also adopt conventional commits, then a lot of the rest can be automated.
I agree. Like it all makes sense if we do Git flow and conventional commits.
Okay. All right. Well, that seems like a good starting point. Let's start
Yeah,
doing Git flow.
big +1 to that.
Yes, but like, are we gonna? So all the PRs that we currently have open, should we change the base branch to develop?
Yeah. So I would say we should end this call and move some of this discussion
Okay.
on Discord. Otherwise, we're going to spend half an hour trying to talk through this.
Fine.
Hey, we're spending half an hour either way, so.
We want to have the minor tags on the issues, please.
Yes, let's do that.
And then hopefully the Pascal's PR is reviewed as well.
Well, I think Pascal's PR is not ready for review yet.
No, it's not ready, and
Oh.
that's going to be sometime.
Okay.
Although when it's ready for people to try it, even before we merge it, I'll let people know. But
Actually, I've also mentioned one final thing here. I think one of the other kind of very tactical pain points for people is just every time you restart a miner, it takes a long time to sync. And I think making it so that we can reuse the working directory across restarts is super high impact. And I think a modest amount of effort. Like last I looked at the code base, but I might be wrong. So I'm curious to get just like a rough t-shirt sizing from, I think Ludo, maybe you're the most familiar with that piece of code, but if others want to chime in as well to see when we could potentially work on that.
Yeah, I think that it's an effort that can be phased. Like I think that there's a few low hanging fruits, like for instance, recovering from the like reusing the headers from the previous run is something that we can do without taking a risk, I think, and it's like 10 minutes on the booting process. And then yeah, maybe if we could yeah, I don't know, yeah, anyway, I think it's an effort that can be phased. So
it's not restoring the previous leader key it was using. It needs to register a new one. There shouldn't be a need for that, right?
Yeah, that seems like that would be one of the nicest
yeah,
Yeah,
restart features.
because that slows down people restarting even more.
yeah,
Plus an extra 40
next
or
for free,
50,000, 40,000 Satoshis.
yeah. So sure, yeah, I can work on that after 2347.
All right. Cool. Well, thanks everyone. Oh, sorry, Jude.
Do I have to open an issue for that real quick then?
Oh, there is already an issue.
Yeah, that's already an issue.
Oh, good, okay.
There's an issue from Dan, I think it was, at least